You got to get an idea of how you feel about the offense and the defense and where this team is going. It's Freaky Friday on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, friends and neighbors. It is Friday, so we're going to have a fun show today. We thank you for joining us and making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day, and we are available Monday through Friday all the time, all year round. So do not miss it. We have you covered for everything you need to know about this Chiefs team. And we even have breaking news at 816-357-8781. That's our text line. You can always get us there. We appreciate it if you would check us out on not only the audio side, but here on YouTube. You can find my partner, Chris, over at KC Chiefs Corner, where he's doing his thing. Yeah, right. Hey,
it's got to be a Friday thing.
Yeah, it must be.
It's got to be a Friday thing.
Got to relax a little bit. I'm Ryan Tracy, founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting. You can find my work at NFL33.com, as well as RGRfootball.com and a number of other things. Got some new irons in the fire we'll be letting you know about here coming later. But if you're ready, we're going to take the temperature of this team. That's coming up later. Overall, where are we? But first, we got to get to the risers and fallers on the defensive side of the ball. And we're going to start on who's up and who's down on the offensive side. And I think this is like a good day, especially being a Friday, to just take stock of everything that's happened. The draft is come and gone. The free agency's come and gone. And if we take a step back from the Super Bowl team, that's really what this is about. And I think, honestly, for me, even though the personnel hasn't changed dramatically other than a single draft pick, I think the offensive side starts right now with one of my question marks at wide receiver. And I think that position group is on the up. And I think it is increasing. Is it fragile? Maybe. We saw multiple of the core contributors that are going to be active in 2025. They were hurt in 2024. So I think there's a natural bounce that you get from them, and that's why I feel like they're rising. But it is with, a little bit of caveat that you got to watch out and not overtax them and not get anybody hurt.
Well, that's the big thing is you can't get anybody hurt. What I will say, and this is the big caveat on all these, is obviously we're talking what does it look like pre-training camp last year versus pre-training camp this year, getting to the OTA season. I actually think this is a much better receiver room than it was last year. You look back at what last year ended up being. I think that there was a lot of hope for Xavier Worthy. Obviously, there was hope for Hollywood Brown that never panned out, but I still think that this receiver room is going to be better because you have more depth. And you have Xavier Worthy going into his second year after watching him grow last year. And I was excited about him last year, but I'm even more excited about him this year because you watched what he was able to do and what he had to learn to try to do in the NFL, and it was completely different than we thought it would be. This time last year, this isn't what we expected. We weren't expecting him to have the role he had last year, and it's a positive. It wasn't a positive at the time, but it's a positive now, and I think that's going to help. And then you look at Jalen Royals. I mean, that's a plus. Rashee Rice is coming off an injury. There's questions there. Hollywood Brown, I think, is going to be better than he was last year. More comfortable with Patrick Mahomes. The chemistry should be better because he should have more time to work with Patrick to get that down. So I think that overall that receiving room is better than it was last year.
I'm with you.
Now, and was Juju even around at this point last year?
No, he wasn't. That's the key right there, right? Is you get a little veteran lift at that point, right? Obviously, quarterback room hasn't changed anything of any significance at this point. You have a little less experience there, but I won't say that it's up or down. I'm saying that's a push because Patrick's going to play every snap unless he's literally taken from the field by force. So I'm not worried about that. Tight end room, the same thing for me. Well, you're going to key contributions from Kelsey and Gray at this point. Wiley didn't produce last year, so I don't see much difference in that room either. Do you?
I want to say really quick on QB, I think it's a little up than it was last year. I think that Gardner Minshew is a better backup for Kansas City. I think that will be a better scenario, but I also think that Patrick Mahomes is going to be better. So
wait, you think Gardner Minshew is a better quarterback than Carson Wentz?
I was never impressed with what Winston in this offense. I'm not going to say he's a better quarterback, but he's at least played and started recently. Wentz has come in and just been that backup guy. To me, that time matters.
Okay. He's certainly a groovier dude. So, vibe-wise, I think that checks into the offensive room a little bit better.
I never thought, I mean, I was excited about Carson Wentz last year, and it never really turned out to be what I was expecting it to be. And so to me, I think Gardner Minshew should be better than what they had. When I look at the tight end room, yeah, it's close to a push for me. I mean, Noah Gray, I think that we were excited about, and then he got the extension right before the season started last year. Travis Kelce, there's a question whether or not he's going to take a step back this year, because he seemingly took a step back last year, but is it him taking a step back, or him not being, or him having injury, or what? Not really sure on that one. But the one that we don't know about is Wiley, and that's going to be the big one.
Yeah, I agree. And with the impact that he had, I think a lot of people are projecting Brittingstool to have a similar impact, which means not a whole lot, but there in case of emergency. And I think that washes out. The one group, and not to curtail the running backs, I think it's a push there as well. The group that is down on this offense for me is the offensive line. You cannot lose Joe Thuney and think that you're in a better position. Despite the rest of the players that try to play left tackle are now different positions, but they're the same four guys, right? So this is a diminished offensive line group this season versus last season, in my opinion.
I don't disagree with you, and I will say congratulations to Thuney. Got a new extension in Chicago, well deserved. He definitely deserves to be getting paid top guard money, and happy for him in that regard. I agree with you, though. I mean, it's a diminished room. It's a diminished line. The question is, can the sum of all of them be better than what the parts were last year? Because what we saw was they were solid. And say what you want about Jawan Taylor, they were still solid at right tackle, especially comparatively to left tackle. But they were solid from left guard to right tackle. Now the question is can they be solid from left tackle to right tackle? And there are some reports, there are some people out there that are reporting that they think that Josh Simmons could be the starter for Kansas City this year if his knee checks out. That would be crazy.
Yeah, it would be insane. I don't know who those people are, but that's
Adam Teicher.
Adam is nuts. Adam's retired, so I'm not putting any more stock into that. So, all right, whatever.
Fair enough.
That's
Freaky Friday. That's my point.
It is freaky. It is freaky. And there's a whole different side of the ball. The defense. Who's going to freak out there more than you think there is? That's coming up next. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers the highlight-worthy performances, major momentum swings, and the can't-miss moments, whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player. There's never a better time to get into the action. FanDuel makes that super easy to stay in the game before the tip-off and when it's live. With player props, performance trends, as well as same-game parlays, fans have more ways to play than ever before and to win big. All you got to do, especially if it's an injury night or something is crazy going to happen, you can get into the action right away. If you've got a read on who's heating up because of it, right now you can get on the same game parlay. Easy, and you can win big with it. If you're new to FanDuel right now, it's perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If that bet wins, you get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook betting partner of the NBA. Now you can find out more at our written word outlets. By the way, Chris spells a lot better than I do, so you'll have an easier time reading that. But check out the rest of my folks over at NFL 33 as well.
There's some great stuff out there called Spell Check.
Hey,
into that.
You know, form versus from. This is it hits me every day. It's one of those deals. That's why we talk into this thing.
I remember being your editor. That was something that's you want to know why I'm gray. That's why.
Yeah. Okay. It's all my fault. All right. Well, I'll tell you what else is going to make you gray, and that's what this defense is doing. There's more question marks overall, I think, as a unit, but we'll talk about the team and the units in particular here coming up in a little bit. But from position to position, I would start with what I think is still the premier position on this team, and that is the outside pass rusher on the front, the defensive ends, outside linebackers, whatever you want to call them, the edge rushers that are there to haunt the quarterbacks. And with Charles Omenihu coming back a little bit last season and available now, I have to say, with him back at that ability level, which is better than it was last year, and the addition of Gelati, who I think is a great fit and will bring a ton of pass rush energy, if not Definitely some quickness as well compared to the rest of this pass rush group. I feel like overall, the edge rush group as a position is better off now than it was this time last year.
Can't argue. Omenihu by himself coming back into a season with fully recovered from his injury, you have basically the same pass rushers from the year before. I mean, that's the big thing to me is you're sitting in a situation where you have pretty much everybody coming back, but you have Charles Omenihu healthy from the get-go. And I hate saying it this way, but not suspended. So at this point, a full season of Charles Omenihu, a full season of all of these guys as pass rushers. And I do think that this is a better unit than it was in 2024. I'm not going to say it's a lot better because I still think that they need to add some talent at that position, but that's one of the hardest positions to add talent unless you're going to spend a lot of money.
Yeah, money or draft picks, right? And that's not to be negative towards Mike Dana, who I just did a piece on RGR Football that I think is really, really important this year, as he has been in many, or Felix Anudike-Uzomah, who's got to take another step forward and can play a bigger role if he can make it click. So there are options there. That's not to downgrade them, but to just say you need more.
You know what the key is with Felix? He's playing for that 5th-year option.
He should be. Let's hope.
That's what it comes down to. I mean, he's playing for a 5th-year option. If he doesn't have a good year, he won't get his 5th-year option picked up, and maybe he can make decent money on the free market. But I don't think he's going to make more than he would on that 5th-year option. Agreed. Not with what he's shown.
Agreed. And only if he gets a bigger opportunity to show as well, and that means he has to take reps and claim them for himself. And I think that's an important piece.
You just said the key: claim them for himself. Sorry.
Yeah, nobody going to give them to you. And with Charles and now Gelati there, and obviously when Mike Dana's going to get his reps, he can move around more, obviously.
Well,
you got to go take what you want.
Yeah, and Karlaftis and Chris Jones playing some defensive end as well. I mean, it's all one of those things. The big thing, though, is when you start looking at defensive tackle, and I'll just take this one, I think that they've taken a step back. And I would say, I'm not going to say it's a huge, but I'd say it's a pretty sizable step back. Losing Wharton with that. Okay. Losing Wharton is a big loss. Well, and Naughty, but not. I'm looking at it from a pass rush standpoint for the most part. Naughty is important, but I think that you can replace that to an extent with what you already have on the roster. But I don't know that you can replace what Wharton brought.
I think we undersell what Derek Naughty was able to do on first down. I don't know that there's a run defender on this roster right now of his caliber. I would say there isn't.
It's fair. Problem is I mean, and I'm not saying run defense doesn't matter because it does, but that's not what's going to make. That's not what's usually going to make or break you in the NFL right now. So,
in the AFC West this year, it might.
That's true. Definitely something to watch, and definitely something to pay attention to.
Yeah. Okay. Linebacker level, same 3 starters. So we can't put too much emphasis on it. But I would say with Cochran back and Bossa in field, Cam Jones would now be 5th or 6th, where he was probably the primary backup last year. I think that overall as a position group is better off than it was by a slight margin.
Yeah, I'd say slight margin up. Not much, but just a little bit up.
Fair. So that brings us to the secondary. What do you think?
I think we need to split these.
Okay.
Safeties, where you got?
It is hard to see Justin Reed walk out and think that you're better off. You're not. But I will say this. Maybe you lost 10%, maybe you lost 20%, but you can see the ceiling for Jaden Hicks to fill that role and take you back up to where you were. With Mike Edwards back, maybe you have somebody else that can play in the back single high a little bit more. I don't know that you can rely on. So the real question mark for me is what Chamari Connor can do. And if they're going to try to stick him in the nickel still, which I think is a total mistake, they got to get him out, and free range Chamari is what I'm going to call him right now.
Free range Chamari. I'm going to say that I think that this is going to be a little bit of a step down, mainly because you lose Reed, you lose his leadership, you lose all of that went with Justin Reed, and that it cannot be replaced by anybody that's really on the roster right now. Just his entire role can't be replaced by one person. I would argue, though, that I think that while Jaden Hicks may not be able to get you all the way there early on in the season, I think he has the ability to show maybe even some more than what Justin Reed did at times for Kansas City. With his reaction and with his ability to come down and into the box and hit, I mean, and the question is can they start getting to a point where they can also force turnovers? So I'm going to say it's a little bit of a downgrade, but for right now, it's not. I'm not going to say it's a huge downgrade, even though the loss of Justin Reed is big.
Okay, so the other premier position on this side of the ball, the cornerbacks, still got your number one being your number one, but I would say top to bottom with the competition they brought in to really pull the rest up, as well as a draft pick, I'd say the corner group is probably better off right now than starting Nazeeh Johnson last year.
Yeah, definitely better. I mean, you're better than starting Nazeeh. You're better than starting even Jalen Watson to a degree. At this point, I'm not going to say that Watson's lost his starting job. He may end up having it, but at this point, there's definitely going to be a question whether or not it's going to be Watson or Williams. And I don't mean the Williams that's been here. I mean the new Williams, Noel. So that's really going to be what it comes down to for me. Is it's going to be a question of can you be in a better position. And can Noel Williams take that position from Watson? Because I do think Christian Fulton is better, way better than anything they had as CB2 last year. Hopefully he can stay healthy because that was the biggest problem with Jalen Watson is Jalen Watson couldn't stay healthy or he would have been a great number 2.
Yeah, and that's what it comes down to is can you have the bulk of your players on the field for the bulk of the season? Nobody's going to be perfect. Some guys are Ironmen. No team is perfect. So do the best you can to maximize, but that's only half the ball. You got to put it all together and see what the total makeup of this team could be and what the temperature of this team. I think they're going to get hot. We're going to tell you why coming up next.
I'll throw a little bit of a curveball at you.
Okay.
Just since we didn't talk about it at all. Kicking game. Butker, I think, is probably about the same. Yeah, there's a kicking game. Special teams. Do we think it's going to be better or worse than last year? I think punting is going to be better. I think Araiza is going to be better than he was last year. I think Butker is going to be about the same. The question is going to be the returning.
I think there's more options at returner. I don't know if there's a clear path to improvement.
Yep, I'd agree with that.
And I will say this:
they're probably close to a push, if not just a little bit ahead. Because I still think Matt Araiza is going to take a step forward.
You hope so. They brought in competition specifically for that, to work on directionality, to work on placement. So there are things to be gained there. I'll also say that I think the changes to the kickoff rule, maybe that makes Butker, I think, a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more rhythmic, instead of like what I thought was some just basic, just kick it out of the end zone every time kind of stuff, right? So for the kicking game, I'll say they're slightly better off right now than they were this time last year. But hot or not, I think is the way to do this. And just when you put it all together and you look at Chris Jones' personality versus the new guys, how they mesh together, Mahomes is Mahomes, and I don't think anything really limits him except for him and Andy. There are ways around every problem, and he has all the answers. It's just whether he actually digs in and does it. And I think at this point, when I hear him talk about what he wants to do now and getting back to some of the things he's been talking about for too long, it feels like a hold my beer year for Patrick Mahomes. Like they finally got the wideouts, right? And I think if they can get a little blocking, right? It feels like that's his attitude, and I love that. I think this offensive side is getting hotter.
If you followed us for any length of time, you've seen Seth Kaiser come on from time to time. Go check him out. He does a fantastic job. Real amen. Chiefs fan. Has a great Chief in the North blog on Substack. Check that out. He actually talked about specifically Mahomes in the deep ball and the Chiefs in the deep ball, and how you can look at it as a Mahomes issue. You can look at it as a wide receiver issue. You can look at it as an Andy Reid issue. You can look at it as an offensive line issue. There are 4 different ways that you can look at how it went wrong in 2024. The question is you know all the ways it went wrong. Can you get all of them correct and going in the right direction in 2025? That's what's exciting to me, because to me, if you can get average to above average play at left tackle, that solves one of the biggest issues that they had with deep shots last year.
Mm-hmm.
Because I guarantee you, Mahomes and Worthy are going to be on the same page this year, way more than they were ever last year.
Yeah.
And Hollywood Brown, another year with Patrick Mahomes, is going to be on the same page with Patrick Mahomes way more than he was last year. And that doesn't even take into account Rashee Rice and bringing in a guy like Royals. So to me, this offense looks like it should be able to shine. The question is, and I love that you called it a hold my beer year, but the question and the reality is I think the only thing that's going to stop this offense is going to be, unfortunately, the person that's in charge of the offense at Andy Reid. And can he get out of his own way?
Mm-hmm.
Because I do think this offense has the ability, the biggest key is if you can get offensive line play to be above average at all positions. If you can get above average at all positions, I think you're going to be golden. And I think this offense has the ability to score 40 to 45 points a game. And I do not say that lightly. They have that ability. But is Andy Reid going to let them do something like that? Can he let them go be the New Orleans Saints from a couple of years, from years ago when Drew Brees was going off or Tom Brady was going off? If he does, then you can see the hold my beer year that I would really love to see, and I know a lot of Chiefs fans would love to see.
Yeah, absolutely. On the flip side, I feel like this defensive unit, top to bottom, has been achieving, maybe overachieving, we could even say, the last couple of seasons, right? Spags has got the system dialed in. The players are bought in. The coaches are improving young players and making them contributors. Now you have a little bit more star power on that side as you get back to making some draft selections on that side of the ball that I think are going to contribute. It feels like it's gelling together. There's not a lot of room to improve, to tell you the truth. They're top 6 in DVOA last year, top 10 in generally any way you can look at it. But I do feel like, despite the personnel changes, they're at a nice simmer, and they could boil over and get super hot. But I feel like they're about where they need to be right now in order to continue to put out the way they have.
The crazy thing to me, and I want to say something about what you talked about with Spagnuolo before I go there, but Spagnuolo was loved by everybody. His defense absolutely loves him. I mean, you listen to them talk, it's all about Spags does this, Spags does that. And I love that, because you have the offensive players that love Reid, and you also now have the defensive players that love Spagnuolo. And when you have those two units that are working together and working their butts off because they love their coaches and love who they're playing for because they're playing for their brothers, that makes things special. That makes it to where you can go to 5 Super Bowls in 7 years. That's part of the reason they're able to do what they've been doing. But the big thing to me is when you start looking at what made New England so much trouble in their dynasty run. It wasn't, don't get me wrong, Tom Brady was good. But go back and look at their defenses.
Mm-hmm.
We don't talk about defense enough. I know you love talking about defense. I don't talk about it enough, and I get it. But it is about defenses. And the big thing here, when you start looking at this, what was one of Kansas City's things that they struggled with last year late down the stretch? It was getting after the passer. Why did they struggle with that? Because so many guys came open so quickly and so early. I don't think you're going to see that this year. I think when you have, I know I'm speaking a little hypothetically, but I think when you have Christian Fulton on one side and you have Trent McDuffie on the other, or Trent McDuffie on the inside, and you have a Noel Williams or a Jalen Watson on the other side, you're going to have scenarios where maybe they get beat a couple of times a game, but they're not going to get beat as quickly as they were getting beat last year. And the reason that's such a big deal is because it's going to help your pass rush. The pass rush got pressure. They just didn't get home. When you start getting home and we start getting more hits, it's going to pay off, and it will pay off big for this team.
Yeah, I think that it will as well. We'd love to know what you think. Leave your comments down below. Get in the action here with us. Get subscribed to the text line so that when big things do happen, we will let you know. And that includes OTAs that we're going to give you some pre-information for next week. So make sure you subscribe at 816-357-8781. Check out the other sites. Check out the rest of the Locked On Podcast Network, because it's your team every day, whether it's your team or their team or everybody's team, as well as the national shows. And we appreciate you very much. Have a great one. We'll talk to you next time